You're listening to the Crew Book Club podcast, the show that challenges you to change your mindset through hearing about dope books. Thanks for hanging with the crew to get advice, ask questions, and gain knowledge with me, your host, Sade Hill. What up, crew? What's good? It's your girl, Sade, ready for another episode of the Crew Book Club podcast. It is on and poppin', baby girl. I just went so old school. On and poppin' and baby girl. Who say that? I did. Anywho, I am always excited to be here. Y'all already know. And I don't want to keep you guys too long. Oh, well. It's so good. So, I know what my coach say, if you like what I'm putting down, you'll stick around. You hear what I'm saying? All right. So today we will be getting into chapter 5 of the book, The Mountain Is You, transforming self-sabotage into self-mastery. And you already know we got to start the episode off with who gon' check me, boo? God is, and we love a good check. And first, let me go back because I was listening to some episodes and I was like, wait a minute. I have not been asking y'all how y'all doing, and I just want to make sure you guys are good, and I want you to check yourself when you're not, and know that it's okay, and it's only temporary what you're going through. Continue to go through, okay? And yeah, so I hope you're doing well. Acknowledge how you feel. Remember, our emotions are there, but they're not there to control us. We are in control of those bad boys, all right? And we talked about that in self-sabotage. So let's self-master our emotions. Ooh, that's a book in itself. Okay. So first we're gonna get into who gonna check me, boo? God is. He is always checking us, and it keeps us what? In check. In Chizek. Okay, we want to get real spicy with it. And this particular check comes from Pastor Tim Timberlake. The message is from last Sunday, and it's called Disruptions on the Road to Destiny. The main scripture, James chapter 1, verses 2 through 6, and he used the translation called Phillips, which I didn't even know there was a Bible translation called Phillips. But either way, listen to what it said. You hear me? Listen very closely. Greetings. When all kinds of trials crowd into your lives, don't resist them as intruders, but welcome them as friends. Realize they come to test your faith into producing you the quality of endurance. Woo! But let the process go on until that endurance is fully developed, and you will become a person of mature character and integrity with no weak spots. It has all the words. I mean, test, faith, produce, quality, endurance, process, development. Woo, mature character, integrity, and no weak spots. Do you get all the gems out of that scripture? Listen, the whole entire sermon was a check, but I wanted to focus on the segments of the sermon. Particularly, he had 3 purposes of faith. And 3 of the purposes was test your faith, develop your endurance, and mature your character. And he broke them down, you guys. So I'm going to put the link in the show note for you to watch your entire service so you can take notes. But testing of your faith, develop your endurance, and mature your character. So the moment you going through something and a trial crowds our life, realize God will only allow what he will allow. It's the choices that we make and how we change our mindset to look at it in that way. So you have to look at it as this is all purposeful and it is working for your good. And then he went into how should I respond to disruption? Because a lot of times we can recognize when a disruption is happening. That's only half the battle. The other part is how do you respond to it? Because remember we talked about emotions. We have these emotions, but how we handle them. So when it comes to disruption, listen to this. He said, rejoice. Ooh, and I know that's hard to do, but baby, Rejoice in it, because one of the points in that segment was your giant indicates you are ready to fight and God has prepared you to. So whatever you're going through, know you're prepared for it. And it's just to fully develop you, like the scripture said, and your endurance to mature your character. I had a friend I have a few friends going through a lot, whether it's through family or whatever. And I was one of those. And I realized God already prepared me for this. And he know that I could get through this. And some of the tests I kept getting over and over and over. And I'm like, okay, God, I get the point. Like, I'm trying to do right and be right. And then I realized I needed to be fully developed to one, if my own people can come for me, like really come for me, then when I'm out here in this industry, I'm gonna be ready, because I'm like, I can handle that. I don't have to worry about what you talking about or what you not talking about when it comes to me, because I already been tried by the people closest to me. Okay, so that endurance and that character build up, I'm starting to realize, like, looking at it from the perspective, if the people closest to me can do me a certain way and I can lean on God to handle me, imagine what the other people that I don't know who can try me. Child, I'm good. I know if God can bring me out of that situation, I definitely know he can bring me out with somebody who a darn stranger to my life who don't even know me. So I started to look at that different. Another way to respond is to request. Ooh, woo, you are a child of God. You better act like it and know that you got access to him. And it says, one of the points he made was, ask God for the necessary wisdom for knowledge to be revealed. So whenever you're facing the trial, ask God, okay, what is the wisdom and the knowledge that I need to take on this? Reveal it to me. He is there waiting for you to show you that he can show up for you. Okay. The third thing was, when responding to disruption, Pastor Tim Timberlake mentioned, relax. Oh, ain't that hard to do, sis? It's hard to relax. Okay. But you have to, because the point he made was, it will be what it will be. Goes back to the part of the scripture that says, let the process go on until the endurance is fully developed. God got you. How many times have he gotten you? How many times have you made it through? You still alive. So that means God is constantly bringing you through. He's just building your endurance. So relax, sis. God got it. And you're going to request the knowledge to be revealed to you to get the necessary wisdom. And then you're going to be rejoicing all the while, because you're not going to look like what you're going through. And you're going to relax because you trust in him. Now, can I get a amen from the congregation? Like, amen, amen. That. Can't even get my words together. That sermon was so good. So hopefully you check it out. The link is in the show notes to watch the entire sermon. Okay, so click that link, and while you're clicking that link, scroll all the way down to the show and go and leave a written review. Give 5 stars for your girl. Share the episode. Follow us on social media at the Crew Book Club on TikTok, Instagram. And you can also visit the website, thecrewbookclub.com. You can get bookmarks. You can get merch, shirts, and all of that. So I just wanted to thank you for showing me the crew love. I see y'all coming through with the 5-star reviews. Please leave some written reviews as well. I really, really, really appreciate the love. Okay, so no further ado, what you came here for. I know a lot of y'all favorite segment is the Who Gon Check Me Boo. And it's one of my favorites too. Like, anything with God is my favorite. Okay, now the book is just an added layer to what God is already doing and revealing on the books I should read to give to you. And you already know I'm your girl. I read the books you should read, but don't have the time to. And that's exactly what we're doing. So I appreciate that you guys are loving everything about the podcast. Okay, so chapter 6, Building a New Future. And this particular book, I'm only doing one chapter at a time because I realize there's just so much juiciness that I want to make sure I'm giving you all the as much as the goodness for you to want to go buy the book, but good enough where you can feel like, girl, if I don't buy that book, I got all I need. Okay. All right. So last week we had discussed and practice releasing the past in chapter 5. Now let's get into building a new future. Okay. And so starting on page 175, it goes into it. It says, the work now is to envision who you want to be, connect with the most powerful version of yourself, design your life through your daily routine, and uncover your true purpose of being. Just a side note, if you follow me on IG, on my stories, I mentioned I'm working on becoming the person to be in the circles of the people that I want to associate myself with. So you got to do the work. So I'm envisioning myself in those circles. I'm connecting that version to myself. I'm designing my life daily to uncover the purpose in the circles that I want to be in. Okay. So let's keep going down into what that looks like. So she gave us some steps. Okay. On meeting your highest potential future self. Step 1, y'all, is face the fear first. Face the fear first, okay? Sit down in a quiet place with a journal. Make sure you're doing it in a time when you feel relaxed and open to receive guidance. If you go into this with fear, you're going to get fear. Invite your future self to come and sit with you and talk, okay? Ask for the highest possible version of yourself to sit down. I asked myself said, okay, this is where it's okay to talk to yourself, because you're not talking to yourself for who you are right now. You're talking and you're making plans with your future self. Okay. And it can seem scary at first, but when you sit down and you face your fear, you will be happy to manifest in your mind and what could be, and focus on that to be able to push forward. Okay. Second, notice how your future self looks. Okay. Meeting your highest potential future self is another way is noticing how your future self looks. You want to clearly envision the most ideal version of yourself so that you know how your own life needs to grow, shift, and change. See what they wear, how they feel, what they do each day. These will be the keys to your own becoming. I was just having a conversation with a friend of mine. We were talking about finances and what we want our life to look like. And I was just like, work it backwards. Me and my husband was like, okay, what do we want our life to look like? What do we want to own next? Where do we want to go next? What do we want to leave our kids? Like, what does that look like? And then it's like, okay, let's break this down and work backwards on what we need to do to be able to get to that future self. So once you know what your future self looks like, what she feels like, and what you're doing each day, you can start to implement that so you can become it. And look, girl, 3-5 years later, you're going to be like, oh my God, look what I did and look where I'm at. Okay. It's all about making a plan for yourself. Ooh, make a plan for yourself, sis. The third step to meeting your highest potential self is ask for guidance. Here we go with asking for things. We got to open our mouths. Closed mouths don't get fed, and closed mouths don't receive wisdom and knowledge. Okay? Ask for guidance. She says, instead, keep yourself open to whatever this person wants to share with you. And I'm going to plug in God at this point. We have to be open to whatever God is saying, because God will not lead us in the wrong direction. So be open to what God is telling you to do. Don't fight it. Because when you fight it, you're going to keep experiencing the same process until your endurance is filled. And you'll be able to not have any weak spots because he matured your character. So I would rather face what God is telling you to do and keep it moving. And if you're asking for guidance from a coach, a therapist, or anything up, you have to be open to what they're saying. And make sure This is where the discernment with Christ comes into play, because this person needs to be uplifting you, affirming you, and they need to be helpful. She says here on page 178, even if they communicate something to you such as you need to let go of this relationship, it should be done in a way that is so calming and reaffirming that you are confident and at peace with it. Peace. Peace got to be in your spirit when you're talking to someone that you need to trust and working with you to make your life better. Okay? Step 4, imagine them handing you the keys to your new life. Imagine your future self saying, here you go. Open the door to your future. Okay? She says, imagine sitting down in a space you used to frequent, a space you use to frequent or inhabit. What you're doing now, what you're going to do is hand them the pieces of your current life and all the information they will need to go from who they are than whom you are now. Imagine your future self giving you aspects of your life now. Imagine them handing you the keys to the home you live in, your wedding band, or anything that is in part of your highest possible future self. This process could make you feel calm, affirmed, and more self-assured, not the opposite. Okay, if your future self scare you, I mean scare you in a bad way, let's reevaluate what that future looks. It should scare you. It should scare you enough where it's like, if I don't do what I need to do, I won't end up there. When I first started discovering my relationship with God, people used to be like, oh, I fear God, I fear God. And I was like, I don't want to fear God. Like, why would I want to fear it? But I want to fear it enough where it's not where I'm scared that I'm not going to do what I need to do to get where I'm trying to go. Do you understand what I'm saying? So, yes. Imagine them handing you the keys to your new life. So those were 4 steps in meeting your highest potential future self. All right. So let's talk about becoming the most powerful version of yourself. She discussed on page 183. She says, are you being the most powerful version of yourself? And that's a very serious question. And that's the very question you need to be most honest about, because if you're not honest about that, you're not going to move forward. Okay? You're going to be doing all the wrong work or not enough work to get where you're trying to go if you're not being honest about being your most powerful version of yourself. We could all do better. I'm talking to myself too. All right. She goes on and says, if you had to pause to think about it, the answer is probably no. If you had to consider, you are not doing enough. All right. She says, we are often unfamiliar with the person we need to be in order to move our lives forward. Inner child work, you visualize and address your younger selves. I had a friend post about that too, about how adulting ends up being back. You realize the work you need to do is in your inner child. She says, often down to a specific age, depending on which version of you are traumatized, you communicate with that inner child self and learn from them, protect them, or give them the guidance they needed when they were young. That's how you start to become the best version of yourself. You have to address your inner child that you probably been neglecting before you can really move forward, because you got to figure out what traumatized you to be able to grow. She says this proves to be profoundly healing for people, mostly because we do not evolve past our former selves. We simply grow upon them. It's like putting lipstick on a pig or spraying perfume over crap. Like, no, we got to really face it and dig it up, throw it out, okay? However, this practice can work the opposite way as well. You can also visualize and connect with your future self, the version of you that you are growing into, or the person you know you are meant to be, okay? But we got to address that inner child. And that was on page 183 through 184, okay? Some other things that becoming the most powerful version of yourself that was listed was, what would be my most powerful self today? Be aware of your weaknesses. Be willing to be disliked. Act on purpose. Ooh, and I ain't saying fake. That's not a fake it till you make it situation. That's a powerful and purpose are one and the same, but it's talking about To be a truly powerful person, you need to have complete unwavering conviction about what you want to create. To do this, you have to shift from live for the moment to live for the legacy mindset. Your purpose is a dynamic, evolving thing. Most of the time, it is an intersection of what you're interested in and what you are good at and what the world needs. And there's a book that I've read that deep dives into that, and we're going to be doing that book soon. She also mentioned do your inner work. Becoming the most powerful version of yourself is doing the inner work. Okay. So those were some lists and things that you could order the book to deep dive into, but I wanted to make sure we covered those two to have an understanding. Act on purpose. And that that becoming and checking that inner child, those are the ones I really wanted to go into. But the book goes into each of one of those things. Envision the person, beware of your weaknesses, be willing to be disliked is self-explanatory, and act on purpose and do your inner work. Now, for nobody's self, you got to work on you, okay? All right. Now, this I thought was a big deal to cover out of chapter 6. It was learning to validate your feelings. And there's a difference from letting your feelings control you and validating you. She says validating someone's feelings doesn't mean you agree with them. It doesn't mean you can see it doesn't mean you can see that they are correct. And this could be about you. It doesn't mean that those feelings are the healthiest, and it doesn't mean they are informed by logic. Validating feelings does not mean you make them more true. It means you remind someone that it is human to feel things they don't always understand. That's a big deal, because even though your emotions are within you, that doesn't necessarily mean that you understand them. Okay, and that's a really good segue to mention our relationship with BetterHelp. To experience therapy will allow you to understand your feelings and emotions and why you react the way you react to certain things. And there's also work where you go back to your inner child. I remember my first therapy session, we talked about my childhood and everything. I'm like, no, I want to get to the right now, but understanding that's part of the process, because it's always going to revert back to your childhood. And I just want to touch bases on that. That's a big deal. And then she goes, how much of the weight is lifted off your shoulders when we think, yes, I really am stressed right now and I deserve to be. Validating the fact that you're stressed right now doesn't necessarily mean that you don't deserve to be stressed, because sis, we're doing uncomfortable things that can stress us out. But that don't mean that we don't sit in it. You get what I'm saying? She says, when we let ourselves have it, the feeling, that is something incredible happens. We no longer have to take it out on other people because we are no longer relying on their validation to get us through it. What? You trying to tell me that if I validate myself first and the feelings that I'm feeling, I'm not going to be looking for you to accept it? Ooh, that is some growth. That sounds like peace to me. Listen more on page 189. We can be aggravated and pissed and mad and do our own processing without hurting anyone else. You see them people that just be going around mad for no reason with the stank face? It's because they haven't validated their own feelings in themselves and they looking for somebody else to do that. No. She says, when people are crying out or acting out in their lives, they aren't just asking for help. They are most often just asking someone to affirm that it's okay to feel the way that they do. They'll do whatever it takes to get someone else to say, I am sorry for what you are going through. And social media, I know a lot of y'all be wanting to go ham on people, but simply just saying, I'm sorry for what you're going through is enough. Or maybe you the person who trying to fight back the bullying online. I'm going to just start saying, I'm sorry for what you going through. Let me affirm you. Because you coming at me is just projection. All right. She goes on to say, when we cannot validate our own feelings, we go on never-ending quests to try to force others to do it for us. But it never works. We never really get what we need. Okay? You are not going to get what you need from these people until you validate yourself and you work on yourself. I asked myself saying, you need help. I need help. And no one else can validate that, okay? It's just not effective. Validating your feelings sounds like a big term, but it really means one thing. It's just letting yourself have them, y'all. On page 191, she says that. And then she goes on to say, when you are healing past trauma, often a big component is allowing yourself to experience the full expression of emotions, okay? Y'all, those were some big things to say. On page 192, she says, once we have acknowledged an emotion, it will often go away on its own because it's been validated. You're not just hiding it anymore, okay? So I want you to cry it out. I want you to feel it. I want you to validate yourself. So that way you don't have nobody else to validate it for and you're no longer projecting, all right? So that was some of the really huge key points in chapter 6. And I want to say, there's a lot more to get into, but I don't want to keep y'all for too long. Definitely, I highly recommend you getting the book to get into it. You know, if you don't want to buy the book and you're like, Shadi, I really don't have time to sit down and read, we have our partnership with Audible. You can get 30 days of premium content, but they also have wellness programs, podcasts, we're on there. They have plenty of things, but this book, you can listen to it and you can get all those good nuggets. I highly recommend, of course, you could be driving and listen to your Audible book, but if you could take a note or a screenshot of what hit you the most and then go back and write it down, I highly recommend it doing it that way, okay? So I want to get into the challenge of the week because it's reflective on a section in chapter 6. And it says, how do I start developing my own principles? And I feel like the benefit of having your own fundamental principles is so you know where you stand. You know, a principle is a fundamental truth that you can use to build the foundation of your life. And if our foundations are right, we good. She says a principle is not an opinion or a belief. A principle is a matter of cause and effect. This means that if you commit to a principle of eating good food each day, we can inevitably, I hate that word. I cannot say that word. Well, basically, you can reap the benefit of a better, improved health. So it's just, what are your principles, okay? And this is how you can develop. And the challenge is this week is develop your own principles. She says, nobody is born with excellent principles. They are something that you learn, okay? As you experience life and you go through things, you kind of learn, okay, these are my principles. These are what I'm standing by, and I'm not wavering. And this is how I'm going to move. And if that isn't your foundation, you'll be able, once you're able to establish that is your foundation, you can go back and be like, okay, do these things align with my principle that I'm doing? All right. So begin with this. She says, what do you value? These are the questions you need to answer. What do you value? What do you genuinely care about? What feelings do you want to experience in your life? And what makes you uneasy or gives you anxiety? Once you know those things, you can address them. She says it could look like this. I value relationships. And so by principle, I'm going to prioritize them when given the opportunity. Alternatively, by principle, I value honest and positive relationships. So I'm not going to be in a dating limbo anymore unless someone commits within a reasonable amount of time. I regard the hesitation as a no. So you got to figure out, and you can have different principles to life, to different segments. It could be a work matter. It could, like she had, a relationship. It could be anything of that nature, but it needs to make sure you know the values of that principle. She says it could be with money, financial freedom. Maybe you know that you need to be repaying debt and building savings to invest. Prioritize being able to work remotely if you Focus on your own schedule. Be clear about your principles so you can build a genuine life, a genuine healthy life. Okay? So, and in a result of knowing your principles, it will give you, guarantee, a calm and the most happiest version of yourself. So this week your challenge is develop your own principles. All right? That was absolutely amazing. There was so much juice that I could not give you for the sake of time. So please, please, please order the book or listen to it on Audible. Both links are in the show notes. Now, y'all, this What Would the Crew Do? Ask Advice is so good. I was just like, I think this is one of the best ones we had. And I don't know whether it's just the timing, but anywho, let's get into it. The subject was perception versus reality. She said, why are most men intimidated by women who are successful? The perception is a successful woman doesn't need a man and is labeled as a strong, independent woman who got it all together. But in reality, we don't. We are longing for the soft girl area to let our hair down in a safe space and become vulnerable. Ooh, this is so good. Okay. First off, why are most men intimidated by women who are successful? I honestly feel like this is something they got to get used to. I think it's honestly that them being uncomfortable with something and projecting and identifying, providing money-wise as that's their version of what a man is. And they don't forget that providing comes with emotional support and other ways to provide to a relationship, not just financially. So I think they have to do the work to understand that associating money and what I can do financially for a woman does not make me a man. I honestly think that's the basis of why they have an issue with successful women. And it's not their fault, y'all. Like we learned in the book We Should All Be Millionaires by Rachel Rodgers, it's only been 50 years where women were allowed to get credit cards. And I think only not that long ago, where around that same time, where women were no longer allowed to be fired for being pregnant. So I think we're dealing with figuring out how to be women in society. They having a culture shock that, oh snap, women really stepping up, and what the roles of what a man and a woman have changed. And we're talking about years of that happening. So we're all trying to figure it out. And I think men and women have to give each other some grace. You know what I'm saying? The perception that a successful woman doesn't need a man, as women, we in the industry, music that we listen to, we've given them that perception with the music that we listen to, with the messages that is projected. And some of these songs are bomb, don't get me wrong, but they project as if we don't need men, and we do. I know I need my man. And I feel like now men and women want the same thing, to be vulnerable, but everybody's scared to be vulnerable because it's not liked anymore. And I think that goes back to the book. We're self-sabotaging because we're worried about being disliked. Bump all that. Express how you feel to that man or that woman and have the tough conversations. I feel like people are not going level deep in relationships. They're very surface. They're embarrassed. And someone got to make the move. Men over here, women over here. But we want to be like this, but we like this because we scared. You know what I'm saying? I think men want to be vulnerable. Women want to be vulnerable. And we have to give each other that. And maybe changing. Yeah, we might be able to turn up with some of the songs that we listen to, but actually have these real conversations like, I need you. And it's okay to say you need somebody. And make that okay. She said we're longing for the soft girl area. It's men out here want to be soft dudes. And I think we're labeling what soft is. They want to let their hair down too. But I think we have to stop generalizing relationships and really work on communicating with your partner how you want them to show up and how they want you to show up, and see if there can be a match. And, I highly recommend therapy too. Okay. So that's my response on that. You guys can always email the crew at thecrewbookclub@gmail.com or DM me any of your questions that you would like to discuss here on the podcast. I will do my best to give you the best advice. Okay. All right. Now, we can't leave the show without giving you a quote of the week. The quote of the week comes from Brianna Wiest, the author of The Mountain Is You, page 205. She says, at the end of your life, your purpose will be defined not how you struggle, what circumstances you were in, or what you're supposed to do, but how you responded to the face of adversity, who you were to the people in your life, and what you did each day that slowly, in its own unique way, changed the course of humanity. Crew, I challenge you to go out and do you, face adversity, continue to grow in your own unique way. All right. Thanks for hanging with the Crew Book Club podcast. I will holler at y'all next week. Hey. Want to be a part of the crew? Hit that follow button so you'll never miss an episode. And while you're at it, I would appreciate you showing Crew love by rating the show on iTunes and Spotify. Don't keep all this goodness to yourself. Share and tell a friend so your whole crew can be growing with you. Let me be the first to tell you, welcome to the crew.